If someone had told me a few years ago that a single shift in how I listened could rescue my marriage from the brink of collapse, I wouldn't have believed them. I was a licensed psychologist with years of experience helping other couples navigate their pain. But when it came to my own relationship, I was completely lost. We were not fighting in explosive ways, no slammed doors, no screaming matches, but the silence between us was deafening. It was the slow, aching kind of disconnection that creeps in quietly, disguised as routine, until you look across the dinner table and realize the person sitting there feels like a stranger. My husband and I weren't dealing with infidelity or financial ruin. We were just two good people who had slowly stopped reaching for each other. And that's what I see in so many couples today, especially in the United States and Europe. It's not that we stop loving our partners. It's that life crowds in. Work demands attention. Children absorb energy. Technology eats away at presence. We wake up one day and realize we haven't truly seen or heard each other in months. Maybe years. That was our reality. But something changed when I received one simple but transformative piece of advice, not from a textbook or seminar, but from a couple I had been counseling for years. They had been through deep pain, betrayal even, but somehow emerged more connected than ever. When I asked what made the difference, the husband looked at me and said, "We stopped trying to be right, and started trying to be real." That line echoed in my mind for days. Being real. It sounds easy, but in a marriage, it takes extraordinary courage. That evening, I asked my husband if we could try something new. Instead of trying to resolve anything, we would simply sit down, face each other, and share how we were feeling, without defending, correcting, or analyzing. The rule was simple: when one person spoke, the other had to reflect back what they heard, word for word if possible, until the speaker felt truly understood. No fixing, just presence. At first, it was awkward. We stumbled. We laughed nervously. But when I said, "I feel invisible when I talk about my day and you're scrolling on your phone," and he paused, looked at me, and repeated gently, "You feel unseen when I'm distracted," something softened in me. A wall came down. I didn't need him to solve anything. I just needed to know he understood. That small shift was the beginning of everything. Professionally, this technique is known as reflective listening. But in our home, we started calling it heart checks. We made a habit of them. Sometimes 5 minutes before bed. Sometimes over coffee on a Saturday morning. The point wasn't how long, it was how honest. And it changed everything. The resentment that had been building slowly began to dissolve. We were no longer enemies in a debate. We were allies, learning a new language of love and understanding. So many couples I work with in therapy assume the key to healing is grand gestures, surprise getaways, weekly date nights, reading every marriage book on the market. While those things can help, they're not sustainable if emotional safety isn't present. And emotional safety comes from one core experience: feeling seen and heard without judgment. Once that foundation is built, everything else becomes easier. Another breakthrough for us came when we both let go of the exhausting need to be right. In Western cultures especially, where independence and logic are often valued over emotion, we're taught to defend our position, to build our case like lawyers in a courtroom. But marriage is not a courtroom. It's not about proving your point. It's about preserving your connection. I had to learn that I could choose to be right, or I could choose to stay close. And most days, staying close mattered more. I remember one night during a particularly difficult stretch. We were both tired, both irritated. Something small, maybe a comment about the dishes, sparked a defensive exchange. But instead of escalating, I took a breath and said, "I think we're both just exhausted right now. Can we pause?" My husband nodded. We sat in silence for a minute. Then he reached for my hand. That moment didn't solve our issue, but it reminded us that we were on the same team. And sometimes, that's the most healing thing of all. In my practice, I often encourage couples to see their partner not as the problem, but as a person with a story. What wounds are they carrying? What stress are they under that they haven't named? What does love feel like to them, and are you offering it in that language? So many couples assume their partner feels loved the same way they do. But often that's not the case. One may need words, the other needs touch. One may need time together, the other needs appreciation. When we understand and speak our partner's love language, we stop missing each other in the dark. If you're listening to this and your marriage feels like a shell of what it used to be, please know this: it's not too late. You don't need to have all the answers. You just need the willingness to begin again. Start with one small step. A gentle question like, "How are you feeling, really?" And then listen, with your whole self, without planning your reply, without trying to correct. Just listen to understand. Also, never underestimate the power of gratitude. In long-term relationships, it's easy to start noticing what's missing instead of what's present. We focus on the flaws, the gaps, the ways our needs aren't met. But gratitude shifts that lens. Try saying, "Thank you," for the small things: making coffee, locking the door, folding laundry. It's not about obligation, it's about recognition. And when people feel appreciated, they show up more fully. I've seen this time and again with my clients, and I've lived it in my own home. And please, if things feel too heavy to carry alone, don't be afraid to seek help. Couples therapy is not a last resort, it's a courageous investment in your future. I've sat with couples on the edge of separation who now laugh together freely. Not because therapy magically erased their problems, but because it gave them tools, perspective, and a safe space to rebuild trust. Sometimes you need a third voice in the room, someone to hold the hope for both of you until you can hold it yourselves again. Marriage is not easy. It is not a constant state of bliss. But it is worth fighting for, when two people are willing to grow, to listen, to forgive, and to begin again and again. It's not about never falling. It's about learning how to fall together, and how to rise again hand in hand. I'm sharing this today not as a perfect wife or flawless therapist, but as someone who has sat in the middle of a broken marriage and found the light still flickering. That light, I believe, is in every relationship. Sometimes it just needs a little air, a little attention, a little hope. So tonight, after you hear this, I invite you to do something small but brave. Look at your partner, not as your adversary, not as the person who forgot to do the dishes, but as someone you once fell in love with. And ask, "How are you really doing?" Then take a breath and just listen. That one moment may not fix everything, but it may open the door to everything, just like it did for us. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so we can keep exploring the secrets to lasting happiness in marriage together. See you soon in the next video.